Good morning.
Good morning.
Today we're going to start on a Mishnah on top of Hey Aleph, 81. Oh, thank you. I'll take some hot water. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. This chus of learning we should have the base of Mikdash.
Right.
It starts like this. You see this 81a. Kosav Lagarish es ishtay v'nimlach. You ahead? You're ahead.
Sometimes I don't know where I'm going to be. I just like play along.
If someone writes a get to divorce his wife and changes his mind. The nimlach means he rethinks it. Well, Bishami says, Paslam min akuna. This wife already cannot marry a Kohen. Now she can't marry a Kohen because if he divorces her, she's a divorcee. Mm-hmm. But let's say he drops dead after he had written the get. So now she's a widow. A widow is allowed to marry a Kohen. Bishami says, no, it's too late. Says, we'll see exactly the explanation. But Bishami says that she already can't marry a Kohen. Still has the other extreme. It says even if he gives her the get, but he gave her the get on condition that some sort of stipulation there, and the stipulation wasn't fulfilled, she's still permissible to marry a Kohen because the get wasn't valid. So Bishami has this extreme that she becomes invalid for a Kohen just from the writing of the get. And Basil says it needs to be 100% fulfilled. Now there is a concept of a reach get. Let's see how that fits in. Shalach le Rav Yosef Braid Rav Menashe Midvil l'Shmuel. That sounds like a place in Poland, no? Mm-hmm. Rav Yosef, the son of Rav Menashe from Dvil, sends a question to Shmuel. Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu, teach us, our master. Yotzal of Kol. This was an actual story that took place. They had the question like this. If a rumor goes out that ish pleni kayin kosav get li'ishtei v'yeshavas tachtav v'meshamash mao. Let's say there's a rumor that there is a fellow, his name is Mr. Cohen. He wrote a get for his wife, and the wife is still sitting there. It's sitting in the house and serving him. So what do we say? There's a rumor, and there's a problematic situation because based on that rumor, this is a prohibition. What do we do? Shmuel sends back first of all, she has to move out, and then we have to see what's going on. Maihi, what are you going to examine exactly? Ilema, do we say the imavatlinan kala? Can the Bezdin go ahead and nullify the rumor? There's a question if the Bezdin is supposed to nullify a rumor because it could look like the Bezdin can say that this rumor is nothing. It could look like that the Bezdin is supporting people that are this is like a corruption going on. Bezdin saying don't get involved, don't listen to that rumor. So do we say that there's what do we have to look into? Are we mevatel kala, or maybe we're not mevatel to call the rumor? No, there's a rumor here that they're not allowed to be married because we say that there's a rumor that they were divorced. And he's a Kohen. Is that his question? There's going to be a Gemara later on that says that in Nahardai, the Bezdin does not get involved in nullifying rumors, and therefore, if that's the case, then they should just get divorced. Ella, the Ikaro Linasina Ksiva. Rather, what Shmuel says is what we need to look into when someone says that he wants to give his wife a get. Can he say write a get for my wife, and that means give it? When he says write a get for my wife, does that mean give the get? So the Gemara says, see, he said, it's said over there in the story, the rumor was that he wrote a get for his wife. That was the rumor. He wrote a get for his wife because he said to write a get for his wife. Does that mean that he gave the get as well? And so the Gemara says, 1 second. But when you say the word write, it could mean to actually write. It could also mean to give. So you establish that in this place it means to give.
What was the verb?
To write. Write a get from my wife.
Show. Right.
Right. But it could be that means that's already the term for to give the get. Now, if that's the case, so then we would say that they're divorced and they weren't allowed to be together. The only problem is that milay karo leksiva gufei milay karo leksiva. It also must mean to write. To write means, even if write means to give, but to write also means to write. So that means that maybe he only meant to write. The Gemara says, you're right, in the Migla Milsa, the Karla Nasina Ksiva, Dilma Nasan Kamre Teitze. You're right. I understand that it means that it could mean to write the get, and it could mean to give the get. It could mean one or the other. It could mean write and give. But nevertheless, that's why we're going to say that they need to get divorced because it could mean the other thing. Kumar says, Ravashi says, Kol Kala de Basan. This is not 100%. This is just a rumor. And we have a rule that any rumor that comes out after the marriage already took place, we don't suspect to that rumor. You only suspect the rumors before they get married. What was the example? The example was that if there's a rumor in the city that this woman is married to so-and-so, so she's not allowed to get married to anyone else until that person gives her a get. But that's only before she marries someone else. But once she is married to someone else, then we don't consider that rumor. She's already married. So rumors are only for before marriages, not after the marriage. So why over here are we saying that she has to get divorced from him? She's married to him. The Gemara says, "My teitze." What does it mean that she has to get divorced? Nami teitze misheni. It means that she has to get divorced from the new husband. Obviously, first husband died. We say that she was never married.
For the second husband.
We say not that she was never. We say that she was possibly at the end of the marriage she wasn't married. That because she was divorced. The question is, 1 second, if she's already married. Second. She's already married, then why should she have to get divorced from the second husband also?
I'm not sure this is something that's going to happen later on.
No. If a rumor circulated that a certain woman was betrothed and then divorced, there's concern that there is concern about the rumor, and she is prohibited from marrying a priest. This is the case only if the rumor circulated before she married the priest. If she married the priest before the rumor circulated, there is no concern about the rumor. If the priest died, she is prohibited from marrying another priest. And if she marries another priest, she must leave him. Oh, okay. So
That last piece,
yeah, because the rumor circulated before she got married, which is the problem. Okay, so she gets married.
So it would seem at this point that this story is more about the concern for the Eucharist of Kohanim than about Gittin in general. Or I'm asking if that's the case.
Yeah, it seems like it's. I'm not sure if this is an issue of the Reach get. This may be just, you're correct. It may be just the Reach get that we're concerned about a Kohen.
Mhm.
It's not really an issue of divorce. And the issue over here, when Shmuel says that she needs to separate, could be because she was actually because of the Kohen, because the fellow was a Kohen. That was another case we wouldn't have said that they needed to separate. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Cohen can't do that. The Gemara asks a question. Im kenat meitzilaz al banav shel rishon, given the misheni the mafkin la mirishon leim. Oh, come on a second. That's the answer. Question mark over there. The Gemara says if this is the case that you're going to make her get divorced from the second husband, the new husband, then what's the reason why you're making her get divorced from the new husband? Because she wasn't allowed to be married to the previous husband, which means that the children from the previous husband are probably halalim. So it's going to cast a rumor on the first children that the children are halalim. Gemara says no. It says kivan de misheni hu de mafkinala rishon le mafkinala. Since we never stepped in by the first marriage to separate them, so what we're going to say is that it must have been that the first husband divorced her before he died, right before he died, not just before he died, but right before he died. And then because of that, that's why she can't get married to the second husband. That's a Kohen. Okay. We summarized what happened on the Gemara before. About if the get was written, if that's already prohibits her to the Kohen. And then we had a discussion about a rumor. We said that if the rumor went out before the marriage, then they would have to separate. By the new marriage, they would have to separate. Okay. Rabbi Bar Bechana says name of Rabbi Yechon Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Elai in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Elai. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Elai is the student of Rabbi Akiva. He's Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. Whenever the Mishnah says Rabbi Yehuda says, it's always Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Elai. It's buried outside Tzfas. If you happen to be there, maybe the professor will go visit. Tzfas,
I'll take you on it too.
If anyone wants a tour of Eretz Yisrael, speak to Moshe.
There you go.
So he says the name of Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Elai. The Dairas HaRishonim, the earlier generations, were much stricter than the later generations. They were on a much higher level. Dairas HaRishonim, the earlier generations, Beis Shammai, they followed Beis Shammai's view, which was that even if there was a person wrote a get, he didn't even give it, they already would separate. And there's Achrein, if there was a Kohen, because they didn't want to be married to a divorcee, and even though she wasn't divorced yet, but it was as if she was divorced. There's Achreinim Reb Daisa. In the later generations, we follow Reb Daisa. The Tanya was taught in the Brisa, Shvuya Ichelas B'Truma, that even a woman that's a captive, which really we should assume that maybe the captives lived with her, and then she would be forbidden to marry a Kohen. Forbidden to marry a Kohen means that she can't eat truma anymore from her father's house. But nevertheless, Reb Daisa says that a captive is allowed to marry, is allowed to still eat truma. And Amar Reb Daisa explained, what did this Arab do to her? He touched her at her breast, squeezed her breast. You're going to say she can't marry a Kohen anymore? That's what Reb Daisa is assuming, that they didn't actually have relations when she was taken captive. So,
for a Kohen Gadol.
Kohen Gadol needs to marry a virgin. She would still be a virgin as well. Well, if she is. If we're just talking over here about Truma. I don't know what the Reb Daisa would say about that. Actually, it wouldn't matter. Amar Rabbi Bar Bechana Rabbi Yechanan, another statement, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Elai, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Elai. This was a Gemara in Brachas, that the earlier generations are much greater than the later generations. The earlier generations would take their produce through the main door. And the rule about Meiser is that the grain or the food that goes through the main door is chayav in Meiser. In the field, you don't have to take the Meiser yet if you're eating in the field. But once you bring it into the house, you have to separate the meiser. So they would take it through the main door to make it chayiv meiser. And the later generations, they would actually do a trick. They would take it through the roof, through the chimney, to take it in, so that if it doesn't go through the main door, it would be exempt from meiser. Sort of like avoiding taxes. They would take it in this way
Flying.
to have that exemption. And Rabbi Yanai says, "Ain't a tevel mischayv meiser. Shir pnei abayis has to go through the front of the house. Never biarti hakedesh min abayis to be obligated. This was never obligated. So this loophole." And Rabbi Yochanan says differently. Rabbi Yochanan himself holds that afilu chatzar kevash nevachal b'sharecha b'saveyu, that even if it sees the courtyard, it's already chayiv meiser. So it wouldn't have helped, according to Rabbi Yochanan. But according to those other opinions, they could avoid meiser like that. Okay, so we see earlier generations and later generations, and the later generations were much more lenient on a lower level than the earlier ones. The new Mishnah, Magar says ishtay. Someone divorces his wife. Balani imay bepundaki. And they take up one room in the hotel. Was that Yiddish song? It was a Yiddish song. Ich bin a border by my vibe. I think this guy gets divorced and then he can't find the where to say. It turns out that it's cheaper to rent by his ex. But anyway, that's not it's a problem. You'll see over here in this mission, it's a problem. So he Beis Shammai says, "Eina tzrichim and a get sheni." She doesn't need a new get. Okay, they stayed in the same hotel room. They were married for years. Okay, they one more night together. Beis Hillel says no. Still says if they were in a closed room together after the divorce, they need a second get. They need a new get. Masai, when do we say that they need a new get? And that's only if they were divorced after a full marriage. However, they would agree that if they got divorced just from a betrothal, that she doesn't need a new get, because he doesn't have such, how do they translate libagaspa? Not so accustomed to. Okay. Now, what was going on over here? Amar Rabba Bar Bechana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba Bar Bechana says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Machlekes B'Shrosh Nivala. Machlekes over here, feeling okay? Machlekes over here is when the witnesses actually saw that they had relations. Was a camera in the hotel room? No, I don't know if that's witnesses. There was people, they looked through the window. They saw that they were having relations and now there's going to be a machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. The Beis Shammai Savri, we turn the page, Beis Shammai holds that a person would have licentious relations. And it doesn't mean that he, just because he lived with her, it doesn't mean that they were betrothed, that he decided to marry her and during those relations. He was just having fun. Wasn't and there was nothing serious about it at all. Beis Hillel Savri, Beis Hillel say, no, this person doesn't do that. If he was having relations, he must have meant that this was a marriage and he was remarried to her. Beis Hillel says they need a new divorce. But if we don't know that they had relations, we just saw that they went into a room and the door closed. Everyone would agree that they don't need a new divorce. Here's this, according to this opinion, Beis Hillel is being lenient. Beis Hillel is being strict, but overall, if you don't see that there's relations, they don't need a new get. Beis Hillel was only talking about when there were relations. Beis Shammai was extremely lenient. Beis Shammai say that even with relations, they still don't need a new get. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Moedim ben Iskarshim and Eirsin, Shenet Tzrichim and a get Sheni, Shenli Begaspa. Mishnah said that if she's divorced from the betrothal, even Beis Hillel would agree that they don't need a new get. Why? Because he wasn't accustomed to her. So, okay, the if our Mishnah is talking about when they saw that they had relations, Mali min Eirsin, Mali min Nesuin. the whole difference between if they were married or betrothed, the difference is that if they were married, then they probably did have relations because they were accustomed to each other. So they had relations. But if they were only betrothed, then they probably did not have relations. But if, according to Rabbi Bar Bachan in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, our Mishnah is talking about when they saw that they had relations. So why is there a difference between a betrothal or a marriage? If there was relations, then there's relations. The whole difference was only what did we assume? What was our assumption? But if they saw that there were relations, so why should there be a difference? That must not be the pshat in our Mishnah. The pshat in our Mishnah, the explanation of our Mishnah is that they did not see that there were relations. There was just witnesses that they went into a room and they closed the door. Now, Beis Shammai says, what did they do? Probably nothing. Beis Hillel says, no, they probably had relations. When do we say they probably had relations? That's only if they were actually married before, but not if they were just betrothed. Yeah, it could be one of the ways of kedushin is to have relations. So that's our concern. Could be that during the relations, or that at the relations he had intention that he's remarrying her. Okay, so what did Rabbi Yochanan mean, and what did Rabbi Bar Bachan mean? Rabbi Yochanan the Amar Ki Aitaner, he was following a different opinion. The Tanya was taught in a brayso. Amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar le'nechtago beisham beisil al shaleiru ashenevala shenetzichem and get sheni. That Reb Shimon ben Elazar was a student of Reb Meir, student of Rabbi Akiva. Who Reb Meir is a student of Rabbi Akiva. He's a second generation off from Rabbi Akiva. He held that the whole machlekes beishami and beisilal is only on if the witnesses actually saw the relations. According to this view of Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Beis Shammai holds that a person, even with relations, doesn't intend to get married. Beis Hillel holds that if they're having relations, it probably is that he does intend to get married. And what was our Mishnah arguing about? In other words, we have the logic for Rabbi Yochanan's brayso, the brayso that Rabbi Yochanan is following, Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Would a person have relations in a licentious way, or would he have relations, or does relations mean that he is actually getting married?
If that's the case, how can someone have a child out of wedlock if that relation
According to Beis Hillel,
creates
right?
They would say it would
a
never be
marriage
the,
to
right.
begin with?
Right.
I think that's different generations.
Jonathan is asking, then there would no such thing as out of wedlock, because every time they have relations, it must be probably married. And yeah, it could be you're right. It could be that there is a view, or maybe this view here, is that if people are together, then they need a divorce.
According
And
to
we're not
law.
saying, let's in our Mishnah,
There would be never
Even
more
if no one
science.
sees it. Sorry.
no, there would have to be only if people see it.
No,
They
because
see the
that's,
seclusion.
That's illicit,
extramarital
yeah.
See
But
the
back
No,
in the
why would
day,
they need
See
to?
the seclusion or see the.
And maybe they
physical-
don't even need that,
No, no, no,
because
a
because
woman can have
obviously if
more
she had a
than
child,
one
there
husband.
must have been a man. There must have been the man with
If
her.
there is no child.
If there's no child, then it would have to be that people know about it. Have to be that people know about it and be witnesses.
She, so know about it, she tells like her sister.
Yeah, that could
Does
be.
that mean you're married?
Yeah, where a sister wouldn't be a good
Or
witness.
does somebody actually have to see it?
No, I think this is not the halacha. This is not the
If
halacha.
you keep it,
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying that it could be that there's an opinion like this. You have to figure out what the halacha is. But there could be that if people know that they're living together, that they actually need a divorce. And that could be, it could be that is the halacha actually. If people live together de facto, they need a divorce. Do they need a get? They separate. And everyone knows, that house, that's where so and so and so and so live.
When you,
After 7 years of living together. That's for legal purposes. Okay.
Took a long time for the rumor to get around that.
Yeah, we had a case like that. Tachas Amita.
Yeah.
Tachas Raglai Amita or something.
It was, yeah.
Um, I remember. Okay.
I mean, you don't always make. the
So, Masnisin do kimna b'layu re'ur shenivla b'may pligi. If there's any questions about these things, you have to ask a rabbi. I don't want to make any rulings from the Gemara here. Masnisin do kimna b'layu re'ur shenivla b'may pligi. What is the logic of the machlekes in our Mishnah when there's two witnesses that after the divorce they went to a hotel room together, and there's only witnesses that they went into the room. No one saw what they did in there. What is the explanation for Beis Shammai that says that they're fine? You don't need another get. What's the explanation for Beis Hillel? Explains like this: the Ika Eide Yichud V'leka Eide Bia. We have witnesses to the seclusion, but we don't have witnesses to the relations. Beis Shammai Safri Lo Yamrinan Hinen Eide Yichud V'Hinen Eide Bia. Beis Shammai say that we don't say just because we have witnesses to the seclusion that we have witnesses to what they did. Beis Hillel Safri, Beis Hillel hold Amrinan Hinen Eide Yichud Hinen Eide Bia. That no, Beis Hillel say that going into the room is automatically witnessing what they did. That's Beis Hillel's view. Umaydim, and then they'll agree. Oh, very good. Ayin Gimel Amud Beis.
No way. It's just the old thing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Very good. This is relevant. Very good. Hillel said if you go back to Ayin Gimel Amud Beis. This was after the divorce, right? The Mishnah was talking about after they get divorced. If they see that they're together in the dark, or they see him sleeping by the feet of her bed, we don't suspect that they had relations. We suspect that they was licentious relations, but not kedushin. And then Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yehuda says, we suspect for kedushin. Over here, I think we quoted this Gemara, no? Yeah, we quote Rabbi Bar Bachana. We quote this Gemara, that Gemara quotes this Gemara. So is it brought down over here? Ayin Gimel, yeah. Okay. Well,
2 points.
very good, yeah. You get a trophy. It's still in business. Everyone would agree that if they were only betrothed and there's witnesses that they were in the same room, that we don't say that they had relations. We don't say that the witnesses of the seclusion are the witnesses of the relations. Gemara now says, 1 second. So it comes out that Rabbi Yochanan's statement about the machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is not following our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is different because our Mishnah has the phrase in it that they agree by Erisin, that there's no problem. Rabbi Yochanan was really following this brisa, that's Reb Shimon ben Elazar, that he has a different idea of what the machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel say. Ami Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, does Rabbi Yochanan really say this? Amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha kistam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan says halacha is like a stam Mishnah. Now, this Mishnah here, even though there's a machlekes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, but it's still considered a stam Mishnah because I don't have Reb Shimon ben Elazar saying what Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel hold, or explaining the case, so it's considered a stam Mishnah. So Rabbi Yochanan really should be paskening like the stam Mishnah, not like this brisa. And our Mishnah was talking about when they did not see the relation. Rabbi Yochanan says the whole machlekes is only when they see the relation. It doesn't fit with the ruling of Rabbi Yochanan. The Gemara says, Amirayan in Rabbi Yochanan. It's a machlekes if Rabbi Yochanan really holds halacha kistam Mishnah. Turns out that according to Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan doesn't pasken like a stam Mishnah. That rule in Shas, halacha kistam Mishnah, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana doesn't agree with. Okay, I have a new Mishnah here. That's after the warning. That's after the warning. Here you need 2 witnesses. Yeah. Okay. The next Mishnah is about something called a get mekusher. Get mekusher is when a Kohen, we don't do this today, but when traditionally when a Kohen would get divorced, he would never be able to remarry. That we do still keep today. Because he would never be able to remarry his wife, and because Kohanim were quick to anger, so possibly, so we're afraid that maybe they needed some time to relax. And when they relaxed, they would regret what they did. So we would prolong the get process by making complicated process. And so we hope that by the time the get is completed, the guy says, you know what, it's not worth it. And he takes her back. For a second wife, she's okay. He says that he regrets what he did. I told you, I think someone called me up. I need a get now. I said, well, I can arrange it for you, but it's going to maybe in a few weeks. I said, no, I need it within the next half hour. Anyway, they're doing fine. They're doing fine. There's no, it's one of those, you didn't take out the garbage things. Okay.
Before a divorce is a divorce, it's an argument, right? When we argue with someone, we're supposed to wait before we try to resolve it for a certain time, right?
When they're angry, you have to wait till they calm down. Right. Well, Mishnah says like this. Well, I didn't tell you what the get mekusher is. Get mekusher is that they take a paper. Pass me this tissue. What they're gonna do is they're gonna write a line on the paper. Then they're gonna fold it over, and they're gonna sew it up on that fold, and they're gonna sign it on the back of it. The witnesses will sign it. Then they're gonna write on the front over here. They're gonna write the second line of the get. They're gonna fold it over again. They're gonna sign it on the back. Sign it on the back, and then they're gonna write more. They'll fold it over again, and each time it's getting sewn and signed on the back. And so you're gonna have officially the get is supposed to be 12 lines. How many folds they make in it is at least 3. You could do 10 folds, 12 folds, for each line or whatever. But there was an empty line on after each line, okay, so because they had to fold it over would go over on that. There's a picture in the Quran. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, it comes out looking like a fan. I was doing it folding like that. I think they really do it like that. We do it back and forth, so it comes out looking like the paper fan. You know, that they give to the girls. You know, it looks like that.
Right.
Okay, so if there's a signature missing on one of those folds, that's called a get kireya. It's a bald get. Why is it a bald get? Because it's missing one of the signatures. Okay, so kansa beget kireya. Let's say a woman was divorced and on her get there was a line missing, a signature line missing. She of course had two signatures on the get, but the way that this get is supposed to be done is she's supposed to have multiple, much more than that. One or either, whatever it is, there's a line missing. She has to get divorced from her first husband because she can't go back to him because she already was married to someone else. She can't marry the second guy because she wasn't allowed to be with him. And if she's with someone that she's not allowed to be with, she can't marry him while she was married, which basically means that the first get was no good. Now, everything that we said before, we had a whole bunch of fines that we said that she doesn't get a ksuba and she doesn't get sustenance. The whole list of things that when the woman gets married and that the get wasn't done properly, all of those laws apply to her as well. We interrupted that Mishnah with a few Mishnayos over here because we did mention a Machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about someone that divorces his wife and changes his mind. Oh, we mentioned about if an old get. That's how we got interrupted. We said if before giving the get he so basically what happened over here was we had Mishnayos about the Machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about a get that was written and then he lives with her and then that brought us into the other topic of if the get was actually given and then he lives with her and then so what happens then. But in the middle of this we had also the story of when the get was done, wasn't written properly, had the wrong dating, had the wrong city and all of that. And now we're getting back to that over here, that she's getting married when there's something wrong with the get. Yeah, Tosfos likes to discuss the order of Mishnayos and things. Tosfos over here discusses that. So get kireach hakol mashlimin alav. When it comes to a get kireach, bald get, that means the get, the makusher that is used for a Kohen's wife. Anyone can sign it. Doesn't have to be a kosher witness. Divrei ben Nanas. That's the words of ben Nanas. And where do we have ben Nanas before? Ben Nanas. Bananas. He was I think a friend of Rabbi Akiva. Well, over here they're arguing. Rabbi Akiva Imer ein mashlimin alav. He wasn't. There was Ben Azai and Ben Zayma were the ones that went with Rabbi Akiva. Ben Nanas was someone else. Who was the one that said that everyone to me is comparable? And I think that was Ben Azai. That wasn't Ben Nanas. What do they say there? Yeah, but their names were also Shimon ben. That doesn't mean that he had. Does it say that he had ordination? No. Yeah. Okay. Rabbi Kiva's Aimer. Rabbi Kiva says, "Ein mashlimin alav ela kreivim marim loy b'makmacher." You can't use invalid witnesses. You can only use relatives. Relatives that were eligible witnesses you can use on this get. In other words, they're just filling up the paper with extra signatures, those folds with extra signatures, but they don't need to be all valid because they could be relatives. But Rabbi Kiva says, but they can't be invalid witnesses. That means like a thief who's an invalid witness or someone that's automatically invalid. Let's see in the Gemara. Bezu get kireach. What is a get kireach? Kol sheksharav meruv me'edav. If you have more tie, more back, more surface areas, more folds than witnesses, you have folds that are empty from witnesses, then it's considered a get kireach. It's called ties because each fold they tied it. My time at the get kireach. What's the problem? Why is it going to be puzzle? It's gzeira because remember, if someone says, I want all of you to write a get for my wife, then one of them writes it and there are other 10 people all have to sign it. That was the rule of Mishnah we had before. If that's the case, then maybe over here, maybe if we see that there's a missing thing, we're going to think that kolchem, all of you should write the get. We're going to think that it also doesn't need to be all of them. So that's why we say that it's possible. Get kireach hakol mashlimin alav. By get kireach, everyone is allowed to sign it. Rabbi Akiva, Eved my time alive. Why is a slave someone that's for sure can't be a witness? Why does he say that the slave can't sign it? Because people are going to say that a slave could be a kosher aid. So the Gemara says if that's the case, then karav nami aslamim kashalei. They're going to say that relatives are. Rabbi Akiva allows relatives. If you think that this is going to make people make a mistake in the halacha, so then they'll make a mistake in the halacha about relatives. The problem with the slave is that we might say, oh, he's not really a slave. We're going to bring him up to a new status. We're going to say that he's not really a slave. Gazlan, so why about a thief? The bar yochsinu liskasher. Alama tanan Rabbi Kiva imer imashlimin alav elakrev mariam lad makmacher karavin gazlan loy. Why does Rabbi Kiva say that you can't use a gazlan? What are you afraid? You're going to say that he has good lineage? There's people that unfortunately that doesn't affect lineage doesn't affect if they're going to be a gazlan or not. Ella eved hainu taima dasalamema shachruri shachri. What we're going to say is by the thief we're going to say that he was. I'm sorry. By the slave we're going to say that he was redeemed. He was released, and he really wasn't. Gazlan nami asalamema chuvavad. The gazlan we're going to say that he probably did tshuva. That's why we're allowing him to sign. But the karav, Mayakalamema, karav kolyami adi the karavu, but a relative, we have no concern. Everyone knows that he's a relative. What are they going to say? You can't pick your relatives. You can't disconnect from your relatives.
You can't, under any circumstances.
Not when it comes to being a witness.
Why do we make the assumption that David is released?
Because we see him signing on a document.
If
Even though
wasn't
this is
Eved, he
not
couldn't.
the most significant document, because we already have 2 kosher witnesses on this document and the other signatures just fill up the page. But nevertheless, if we see him signing, we may say that he was released.
I mean, you're not allowed to release.
And then there was a problem with releasing a slave. But there were reasons why he can, but we didn't want to make any suspicions or make rumors or make anything that wasn't accurate. So we don't want to have a slave signing on the document. Amar Rab Zeira, Amar Rabba Bar Shilta. It's not so common. Amar Rab Hamnuna Saba, Amar Rab Ada Barava. Takes us all the way back. Must have been 2 Rav Ada Baravas. What do you mean the later witnesses?
It was that, for example, if like a non-Jew would sign, that he would have to sign first, and then the Jew would sign
Oh, I
second,
see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying. That we had a Gemara that when witnesses sign, they have to sign in front of each other, because they're actually saying, they have to know who they're signing with them. They have to hear that they're being designated together. I don't know if that applies here. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, what does he say? Goes like this: Get kireach, kisharav shiva. Let's say that had 7 folds and 7 ties. Ve'id of shisha, and it only had 6 signatures. That would be a get kireach. Shisha ve'id of chamisha. There were 6 folds and 5 witnesses. 5 signatures. Chamisha veidav arba, 5 folds and 4 signatures. Arba veidav shleisha, or 4 folds and 3 signatures. Adkan machlekes benanas Rabbi Akiva. That's the way the machlekes goes with benanas and Rabbi Akiva. But if there's 3 folds and only 2 witnesses, then you're down to a regular get. Everyone would agree that you cannot use someone that's really invalid. You actually can only use what Rabbi Akiva held, which would be a relative. You already have the 2 witnesses, but the third one needs to be at least a relative. Amalei Rab Zera le Rabba bar Shilta Michti Kol Shleisha b'Mekushik Tishnayim b'Pashat Dami Ma Hasam Karav Layaf Achanami Karav Lay. On a regular get, you can't have 2 witnesses. One of them is a relative. So why over here on the get Mekusher, can you have 3 witnesses and one of them is a relative? Amalei Afli Dikashali. That's a good question. I also had that question. B'Shilta le Rav Hamnuna. Actually asked Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna le Rav Ada Barava. And Rav Hamnuna asked Rav Ada Barava of Amalei, and he said to Rav Hamnuna, Rav Ada Barava answered, don't worry about it. That's just a rabbinic law. The 3rd signature is not so important. Tanya Nami Hachi. It's taught in the Braisa. Get Kireach Kshar of Shiva. The Get Kireach has 7, that has 7 folds. Vedav Shisha, 6 witnesses. Shisha Vedav Chamisha, 6 folds and 5 signatures. Chamisha Vedav Arba, 5 folds and 4 signatures. Arba Vedav Shleisha, 4 folds and 3 signatures. Adkan Machlekes Benanas Rabbi Akiva. Hishlam Alav Eved. If a slave signs Benana Seimer Avlad Kasher, the Benana says that the child,
Meaning she was divorced.
she's divorced by that get and she gets remarried based on that get. Benana says that the child is kosher. Rabbi Kiva Eimer Avlad Mamzer. Rabbi Kiva says child to Mamzer because she wasn't divorced, and therefore she had an adulterous relationship, and the child was born from that. But if there were 3 folds and 2 witnesses, everyone holds that it can only be a relative that will be the 3rd signature. Not, of course, non-relative would also be good, but it can't be someone that's actually puzzled. Rabbi Yosef Masni Kasher. Rabbi Yosef says that it needs to be a kosher witness. And Tanya Karav, but the Brisa says that it doesn't need to be a kosher witness. It just needs, it could even be a relative. Rav Papa Tini Kasher. Rav Papa says, okay, adjust it to say kosher.
Change the word.
Yeah, Rav Papa's changing the word. But when he's changing the word, is he saying that it can't be a relative? How does it conclude by you in your commentary? Sounds like he's saying that it can't be a relative. Okay. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan says that when we allowed an invalid witness into this get Mekusher, into this Kohen get, you only have 1 invalid witness, only 1 relative. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it can only be, according to Rabbi Akiva, it can only be the relative. Rabbi Yochanan is saying we can only have 1 of them. Aval trei loy. You can't have 2 relatives on it. Even if you have 7 signatures, you can only have 1 relative. The rest need to be actually kosher. If we would have more than one relative signing on this, then when it comes to validating the get, you only need to get 2 signatures ratified, notarized. You only need 2 of them. You may end up getting the 2 that are the relatives, which are not the ones that are the main ones.
Meaning you're only going to validate 2 from all the many.
Yeah, well, actually, over here it says you're going to validate 3, but 2 of them are going to be the relatives, and only one of them is going to be the kosher one from all the many. And it's not going to be that it's a real good, that it's clearly a good get. Ravashi Ravashi says, I can extract this piece of information from the Mishnah itself. Well, he's not saying it as a question. He says, if you look at the Mishnah, it comes out that he's correct. The kamedalig betani chad chad shma mina, because the way that the Mishnah was, or the Brisa was discussing, it would say there were 7, but missing 1, and then they said that you can get a relative to sign that missing 1. So see, they only were saying that it's missing 1. They didn't say that there were 7 and there were 5 signatures, and they can get 2 relatives to sign it. We see from this that Rabbi Yochanan is correct, that you can only get 1 relative on this. Yeah. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, you have to follow Abaya's logic here. Shma mina, we learned from this that Haikar of Chasim, Iboy, if he wants, the relative can sign if he wants, Bein Betchila, Bein Bem to Bein Beseif. It can sign on any part of this document, beginning, the first signature, middle signature, last signature, it doesn't matter. Mimai, how do you know this? Midlai Kavalei Makim, because we didn't set up a special place. Shmamina. But we can see from this now that Mikol Tlasa Mekaimina and V'lei Bina Ritzufin. Shmamina Mikol Tlasa Mekaimina and V'lei Bina Ritzufin. That you validate 3 of the signatures, and the 3 signatures that you validate don't need to be one after the other. You can validate 1 from the top, 1 from the middle, 1 from the bottom, and then the get's kosher. Once you get 3 validated. These because if you needed to have 3 signatures in a row that were validated, says like this. If you had to validate 3 signatures in a row, then what you can do is every 3rd signature could be a relative. And what you do is you have 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 are kosher, or let's say 2 and 3 are kosher, and 1 was apostle, and now number 4 could be a relative as well. 1 and 4 could be related to the husband or wife. So because like this, I could really get on this get, I could get every 3 signatures I could put in a relative. And if I have to validate 3 signatures in a row, then I'll always get 2. I'll always have 2 kosher out of every 3. But since I don't have to validate Ritzufim, so that means that I could pick out 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here.
You don't know if
Then it could be that all the ones that I picked out were all relatives. So we see from this that he can sign anywhere, and that they're not Ritzufim, and the ones that you take are not okay. And that's why you can only have 1. Because otherwise you'll be able to take, and you can, if it would be the other way, we can have more than 1 signature, but more than 1 relative in there. And then we don't have to worry about it validating the wrong one. When such a case came to Ravami, that they didn't have all the witnesses, he said, you could get a slave to sign. Who says that? You can use a slave? It must be bananas. Sounds like bananas. Interesting. Can we have a new parak? This is a wild chapter. Get ready for this. Someone divorces his wife. You can marry anyone you want, except for so and so. We're going to see in the Gemara what he means by except for. Blazer Mater. Blazer says that that's a good get. Chacham say it's not a good get. Kate said, Yasa, what do you have to do? He has to take it back and give it to her again. He has to say it clear, you're mutter to everyone. You can't say that except for one person.
The same get.
You could use the same get. This was just a statement that was made along with the get. Let's say in the get itself, it says you can marry anyone except for so and so. Even if you try and erase it, puzzle, it's finished. The puzzle get. That's what's written inside the get. Ibailo. Hi Ella. The Gemara says, when it says Ella, except for, doesn't mean chutzu, doesn't mean that there was it's called sheer beget. Doesn't mean that he actually didn't permit her to everyone. He permits her to 99% of the world. Not for, there's one guy that's not permitted. Oi almanasu. Or was it, he permits her to everyone, but there's a condition. If you marry so-and-so, the get's possible, the get's bottle. What was he saying when he says Ella? But did he mean that the actual get doesn't really allow her to marry that person? Or the get allows her to marry everyone? But there's a condition here that if she does marry that guy, that the whole get is off. The whole get is a real get. But if there's nothing lacking in this get. There's just a condition that she, just like I'm giving you this get on condition that you go to I don't know, California. So if she goes to the guy gets is that you never go to California. So well, that's a problem because you can't. You don't go to California within the next year or something. So then if she goes, so she would nullify the get. So here also. Oh, you got to be careful. They never really. That's never the same. Okay, so that's the Gemara's Ibaylahu. Is it chutz or is it almanas? Chutzu, b'chutzu the pligi Rabban ala the Rabbi Eliezer. When it's chutz, now we have a machlekes Rabban and Rabbi Eliezer. You see this machlekes Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer go like this. Rabbi Eliezer says that this get is okay, and the Chachamim say it's not okay. Now, if we say that there's actually missing something from the get, and it's, in other words, the Rabbanan say that it's not okay is because he didn't divorce her, he didn't permit her to everyone. We understand the Rabbanan's opinion. Because it's not a complete get. He didn't permit her to everyone. That's why the Rabbanan say that it's not good.
What's wrong with putting a condition on a get?
Yeah, what's wrong with putting it? Very good. Very good. Okay. Aval balmanas. But if it would be a condition, then maidu. The habia kol tanai dalma, then it's just a regular condition. Then the sages would agree that this is permissible because you can always have a condition on a get. Okay. Oh, yeah. There is an issue here of that. Yeah. Naftali Hill is bringing up that if you have what you mentioned, that if the condition that lasts the whole lifetime, then they're not really severed. There's still an attachment. It would be an issue. We'd have to figure this out, how this is going to work. Dilma, or maybe Almanasu. Maybe the problem over here is the condition. And that's why the Rabbi Eliezer says that it's fine. Maybe everyone would agree that it's invalid if he said you're permissible to everyone except for this person. Everyone would agree that it's invalid. We're not sure over here. We understand why Rabbi Eliezer says it's good by Almanas, and we understand why the Chacham say it's not good by Shir. We understand why Rabbi Eliezer says it's good if it's a condition, and we understand why the Chachamim say that it's not good if he's actually saying that you're not permissible to so and so. Amar Avina Tashima. We're basically looking for the language here. What does the word Ella mean? Does Ella mean Almanas? Or does Ella mean? Okay. So Tashima, come and listen. All houses can have on them tzaras, except the house of an idolater. If you say it means except for that, they then fine, shopper. But if you say on condition, so almanasu the tzaras comes on a Jewish house on condition it doesn't come on a non-Jewish house. That's when it's going to be. But if it does get tzaras, then the Jewish house doesn't have tzaras because it was a condition. They can't get tzaras anyway. We see that the way the word Ella works means that it's except for, it doesn't mean on condition that. Okay. Our Mishnah doesn't fit with the following Tana. The Tanya was taught in a brayso from Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says, there is no machlokes. Someone says you're divorced from me, and you're permissible to everyone except for so and so, that she's not really divorced. So what is the machlokes? You're permissible to everyone on condition that you don't marry so and so. Rabbi Eliezer says that she can marry anyone except for that person that was part of the condition. The Chachamim say that she can't get married. My time with Rabbi Eliezer. Why does Rabbi Eliezer say that it's good? Just like every condition on a get. Made a condition, okay? So just beware of that condition. For Rabbanan, the Rabbanan say kol tanai da'alma le'shia labeget, hachashia labeget. The Rabbanan say that this condition messes up the get. Because he's saying that she can't marry so-and-so, and the whole point of a get is that she can marry. The get says that harayat muteres l'chaladam. And this condition says that she's not muteres l'chaladam. Okay, masnisen. So that is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the machlekes Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim is not about chutz. But our Mishnah says that that Rabbi Eliezer actually agrees even by chutz. Now, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer never agreed that it's permissible if he says you're permissible to everyone except for so and so. The whole permissibility of Rabbi Eliezer was only if it said on condition that you don't marry so and so. But if he actually says chutz, then even Rabbi Eliezer would say that it's not good. And our Mishnah doesn't say that. Our Mishnah says that Rabbi Eliezer would agree even when he says chutz that it's good. Okay, that's what he would hold. My time with Rabbi Eliezer. Why does Rabbi Eliezer say that it's acceptable to have a get that doesn't allow it to everyone? Rabbi Yana says in the name of an old sage, is that Leo Hanavi, Daniel? Apparently in the manuscript it doesn't say.
You used to say Hahusaba, right? That was it.
Yeah,
Usually
no,
Saba
maybe
is
not.
on-
Maybe the star is going to something else. What is the star going to? Okay. Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "V'yatzmi beisa v'haisa v'halcha v'haisa l'shacher." She leaves his house and she goes and she marries another man. She only has to be allowed to one other person, and that's already a good divorce. That's according to Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbanan, the Rabbanan, they say, hi, skip the parentheses, hi ish, l'chol ish v'ish. When it says and she marries another man, it doesn't mean that she has to be able to marry one man. It means she has to be able to marry any man. Rabbi Eliezer says that it's already a divorce just to allow her to marry one man. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, time of the Rabbi Eliezer Mehacha. Rabbi Yochanan has another source. It says the Isha Grusha Me Isha Lo Yikachu, that a kohen is not allowed to take a divorcee, a divorced woman from her husband. He shall not take. Even if she's only divorced from her husband, that which means you're divorced from me, but you can't marry anyone else. Rabbi Yochanan says that that's already considered a reach get, and it's already a problem. Reach, the scent of a get. It smells like a divorce. So, you see that a get could already be, that means that from the pasuk we see that to invalidate her for a Kohen would already work, even if she's not permitted to anyone. So for sure, if she was permitted to the whole world except for one guy, that would be a good get. But Rabbanan, Isser Kuhun Ashani, the Rabbanan say no, a Kohen has different laws. So that's why for a Kohen, this is a problem, but it doesn't mean that it's really a get. Okay. Boy, Rab Abba. Rab Abba has a question. But Kedushin Hech. What about, this is why I said this is wild. What about by a marriage? Talking about now, if someone says, behold, Harei at Mikudeshas li,
Altanai.
you're married to me, which means that you're prohibited to everyone, except for so-and-so. In other words, you can still be with so-and-so. What do they call this? Open marriage or something. What do they have a word for it? You're married to me, but you can also live with so-and-so. Well, Tibayla Rabbalasa, Tibayla Rabbana. This is going to be a question. This is Rabba's question. It's a question for Rabbi Lazar. It's a question according to the Rabbanan as well. It's a question according to Rabbi Lazar. When does Rabbi Lazar say that by a divorce, you're forbidden, you're permissible to everyone except for so-and-so? Because we have psukim that say that that's still a divorce. We have the verses in the Torah. Aval Hassam, but when it comes to Kedushin, Kinyan Ma'al Yabinan, we need a real Kinyan. That means that she's only permissible to him and forbidden to everyone. Not going to be valid. Or maybe V'yatzav Haisa. We learn marriage from divorce. If it works for divorce, it should work for marriage. We can ask the same question according to the Rabbanan. Why did the Rabbanan say that it's not good? Because by a get, you need to be totally severed. He's still holding on to her by saying that you can't marry someone. Aval Hasan, but by Kedushin, can you call to? You just have to say you're betrothed to me. Or maybe we say that it's the same thing. If it doesn't work for a divorce, it doesn't work for marriage. We're going to have the same machlaikas by Gittin you're going to have by Kedusha, because we learn marriage from divorce. And if by marriage, if by divorce, there's a machlaikas Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanan, if you can say that you're permissible to everyone except for so-and-so, so by marriage, they're going to be the same machlaikas, where Rabbi Eliezer would hold that if he says you're forbidden to everyone except for so-and-so, that would be a good marriage. And according to Rabbanan, that would be a bad marriage. Well, it is a bad marriage. It means it will be an invalid marriage. Okay. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Imtim Telaim Isa Rababa, if we're going to follow this, we're going to accept the Rababas that there's a machlaikas here between Rabbi Lazar and the Rabbanan. You get ready for this. Ba Ruvain v'Kitsha Chus Mishimon. Ruvain marries this woman. It says, you're forbidden to everyone except for Shimon. You can still marry Shimon. But Shimon, so Shimon comes along. The Kitcha chutz mi Reuven, and marries her. Says that you're forbidden to everyone except for Reuven.
After she's already married.
She's married to Reuven already.
But you can't even say that. Like,
According to Rabbi Lazar, you can.
that's like saying I'm not going to phone someone tomorrow. Yeah. There's no basis there.
Oh, you're saying because it's adultery, but she's only married. She's only forbidden based on his statement to everyone else. Abaya says like this. Look 1 second. Mesu Shneim, Reuven and Shimon both die. Now Reuven and Shimon are brothers. Now, so you can't really marry your brother's wife anyway. So that's another problem. But besides for that problem, Misyavem is the Levi. Yibam is going to be, she has to get married to Levi. She has to do Yibam with Levi. I don't say that she was married to Shimon at all. My time, Kedusha de Reuven ahana Kedusha Shimon layahana. Shimon's marriage was nothing. Now, let me explain why Shimon's marriage was nothing, besides that he was a brother. And besides that she was already married. But the thing is like this. Reuven says you're forbidden to everyone except for Shimon. When Shimon comes along,
Was he saying this more than Chas v'Shalom died and the Yibum? Can't beat the Shimon.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know about that. But the idea here is that when Shimon comes along and says, you're forbidden to everyone, she anyways was forbidden to everyone. Because Reuven,
Got married.
so Shimon's marriage doesn't add anything to her. Shimon says, except for Reuven. So she was permissible to Reuven before. So Shimon's marriage here to her is really nothing. So he doesn't really add anything to this. She was always permissible.
Can he actually turn around and say that if I die, everyone, but, in other words, could that be applied?
You have to go
That's a
through. There's a
condition.
Tais Vasir that's gonna. That's,
Check
I'm
it
not
out.
sure. Yeah.
I think so too, kind of, where she couldn't go with the person she was suspecting.
Right. Right. Here we're talking about creating a marriage that allows for another husband. We say that the second husband is not even a husband. It's not married at all. The Reuven is married to her. But what Shimon did by saying that you're married to me and and you're forbidden to everyone except for Reuven, he doesn't add anything, so therefore it's nothing. So therefore, what happened is like this. Remember, there was a problem when it came to Yibam. If there were three brothers, let's say, one of them was married to this woman and dies. The widow does mimer with the second brother. That brother dies. Mimer was this like rabbinic sort of marriage. Now she can't marry. She can't do Yibam on Levi. Reuben, she's Levi. She can't do Yibam with Levi because she's considered Eishes Shnei Mason. She has two reasons why she's going to Levi.
Oh,
One because of Reuven, one because of Shimon, because she was partially started to get married to Shimon. And it says that you have to upkeep the house of your brother, not your brothers, or it had some reason. There was a problem with Eishes Shnei Mason. I say over here that if Reuven and Shimon die in this case, I don't even say it's Eishes Shnei Mason. She does a regular Yibam with Levi because Shimon's marriage was nothing.
But you were talking about Kedushin, but not Nistuin, right? That's what.
Yeah, and the Nisuin would once we get to Nisuin, then we have other problems. See, that's what Daniel's pointing out, that it could be that it's never well, we're dealing here with the betrothal, not the actual marriage.
The one you're concerned that I think she's like wiping out the whole family.
Oh, be that she's a black widow, she's killing a husband after husband. It is a problem. That was a discussion. You can't. That would only be, I think, after they have relations, not from my time. Okay, Shimon did nothing. So what would be a case of the wife of two men? Reuven marries her and says, you're forbidden to everyone except for Shimon. And Shimon marries her. When he marries her, he doesn't say chutz mi Reuven. So now, if this marriage is acceptable, second marriage, then she's actually prohibited to Reuven. So what he just did now, Shimon, he actually did accomplish something by a statement that he made her forbidden to Reuven. The Kiddushi Reuven ahano lemesra alma. Reuven's marriage betrothal makes her forbidden to everyone. Shimon ahano lemesra Reuven, and Shimon's marriage makes her forbidden to Reuven. Okay. Boya has a question. Someone says you are permissible to everyone except for Reuven and Shimon. This is in this divorce. Then he says to Reuven and Shimon. Now, what does he mean? Mahu, what does he mean? Does he mean that he's retracting from that stipulation? That was more than a stipulation. That what he left out of the get. Here it's the get, right? He was saying that he gives her a get. He says you're permissible to everyone except for Reuven and Shimon. Then he says and Reuven and Shimon. Does he mean that Reuven and Shimon are also permissible now? Or maybe he just flipped it. He said you're permissible to Reuven and Shimon, but you're prohibited to everyone else. What does he mean? Does he now include Reuven and Shimon in the permissibility? Or did he flip it? He said, you're only permissible to Reuven and Shimon. Imtim Talaymar, my Dasa Shara. If you want to say that he just made it permissible, Reuven and Shimon. Let's say he didn't say Reuven and Shimon. Let's say he just said LeReuven. Mahu, what's going to be? LeReuven, V'adin LeShimon. Does he mean Reuven and Shimon is now permissible? Why did he just say Reuven? Because that was like the introduction, and that's like the way he talks about both of them. Maybe he only means Reuven alone becomes permissible. And if you say that he only means Reuven, whatever happens if he says LeShimon? Mahu, what's going to be? L'Shimon v'adin l'Reuven. Does he mean Shimon and Reuven? This said he said Shimon was because that was the last thing that he said. So he was just referring to them with the last name. Dilma l'Shimon dafka, maybe only Shimon. Oy Ravashi. Af l'Shimon Mahu says also to Shimon. Afa Reuven kai, does he mean also Reuven? Dilma afa almakai, or maybe he means also to everyone else, also to the whole world. He says also. Does he mean also Reuven, or does he mean also besides for everyone else? And Reuven is still out. So take it. We leave this as a question. Okay. Rabbi, tomorrow I'll be here, B'ezras Hashem, and Tuesday Rabbi Marla will teach. The Pei Daled. Rabbi Marla will teach. Hopefully, if we get through this. Okay. Shavua Tov, everyone.